the bridge builder. The storm came at dusk, a sudden roar of black sky and silver rain that swallowed the valley without warning. Trees bowed and snapped. The river that cut through Daria village swelled from a gentle ribbon into a churning serpent. By midnight, when the thunder finally wandered off toward the mountains, the narrow footbridge that linked the east bank to the west lay in pieces, its planks scattered like matchsticks downriver. For most of the villagers, the broken bridge was an inconvenience. For the children of the east bank, it was disaster. The only school lay on the western side, a two-room building with peeling blue shutters and a bell that clanged like an old cow. To reach it now meant a 3-hour detour along a muddy cart road, if the children could convince their parents to let them go at all. By morning, rumors of the washed-out bridge ran through Daria like the river itself. Farmers shook their heads, merchants muttered about lost trade, and the village council called a meeting for the weekend to discuss long-term solutions. But children don't measure time in council meetings. They measured it in missed lessons and teachers' frowns. The carpenter on the hill high above the east bank, beyond a tangle of pines, lived a man most villagers barely remembered, Rafiq the carpenter. 20 years earlier, he had built half the doors and tables in Daria. Then his wife died, and grief folded him inward. He stopped taking commissions, stopped coming to market. People saw him only in glimpses, buying nails once a year, carrying timber from the forest. Children whispered that he talked to the trees. Adults simply said, "Let him be." From his window that morning, Rafiq watched the swollen river glitter under a weak sun. He saw the jagged stubs where the bridge had been, and he saw, as he always did, the column of small figures that would normally cross at dawn, children in faded uniforms, books wrapped in cloth. Today the path was empty. He set down his mug of tea. In his chest, a restlessness stirred, like a bird ruffling its feathers after long sleep. Voices of the village that afternoon, he descended to the village, something he had not done in months. At the tea stall near the banyan tree, men clustered with worry, creasing their brows. "The council says maybe next spring," said old Bashir, shaking his head. "Funds must be approved," engineers called. "Until then, nothing. What about the children?" Someone asked. "They can use the cart road," another replied, though without conviction. "If their parents agree." Rafiq listened without speaking. He thought of the school bell, the smell of chalk dust. He thought of his own daughter, Amna, who had died of fever before she learned to write her name. When the conversation turned to crop prices, Rafiq slipped away, unnoticed. Night plans back in his workshop, a low stone building that smelled of cedar and old rain, Rafiq ran his hands over tools that had grown dusty, plane, adze, brace. His fingers remembered what his heart feared to. Could he build it alone? Yes, quietly, perhaps. The river would not wait, and the council would take months. Children needed a bridge now. That night he oiled the blades, sharpened the saws, and counted his planks. He had enough seasoned pine for most of the span. The rest he could cut from the forest. By moonlight he sketched on a scrap of canvas, a simple suspension of rope and wood, strong enough for children, light enough for one man to raise. First steps the next evening. When the village slept and only the river spoke, Rafiq shouldered a bundle of ropes and descended to the banks. He worked by lantern glow, driving the first stakes deep into the muddy soil, measuring distances with a practiced eye. The river hissed and tugged at his boots, but his hands were steady. Each night thereafter he returned. He carried beams under a tarpaulin, dragged logs through undergrowth. He lashed ropes across the narrowest point where two boulders faced each other like ancient guardians. The current moaned, but did not betray him. From the hills he heard jackals cry. From the village, nothing. The world shrank to the swing of his hammer and the smell of pine. Whispers, by the fourth morning, villagers began to notice signs. New rope anchored to a rock, fresh chips of wood on the bank. Children, ever curious, were first to guess. "A ghost carpenter," one boy whispered. "A forest spirit," said another. At school, the Western children traded theories while their Eastern friends trudged the long detour. Teachers scolded the latecomers, but their eyes, too, strayed toward the river. Old Bashir laughed at the gossip. Maybe the bridge builds itself, he said. Rafiq heard none of this. He slept by day, worked by night, his muscles aching with a pain that felt almost like joy. Memories wait as he labored. Memories surfaced like driftwood. Amna's laughter as she balanced on the old bridge rail. Her small hand clutching his when fever racked her body. The helpless silence after. He had built coffins, tables, homes, but never again a bridge. Too many crossings reminded him of the one he could not make. Now, with each plank he drove into place, he felt something loosen inside, as if grief itself were finding a span across the years. Discovery one moonless night. A beam slipped and splashed into the torrent. Rafiq cursed softly, the word lost to the river. A flashlight flared from the opposite bank. Who's there? A young voice called. Rafiq froze. A boy of about 12 stood on the western side, lantern trembling in his hand. Go home, Rafiq said, voice low. You're building the bridge, aren't you? Silence stretched. My sister can't get to school, the boy continued. Will it be ready soon? Rafiq's throat tightened. Soon, he said finally. The boy nodded, as if a pact had been made, and vanished into the trees. Help arrives. The next night, when Rafiq returned, the boy was waiting, with 2 friends. They carried small bundles of nails and rope. We can help, the boy said simply. Rafiq wanted to refuse. But the eagerness in their faces, the trust, melted his protest. He showed them how to sand a plank, how to knot a rope. Their laughter mingled with the river's song. Word spread among the children, if not the adults. Each night a few more arrived, girls with braids, boys with quick hands. They worked quietly, reverently, as though part of a sacred rite. No one told their parents. Some things were too important. The final plank 10 nights after he began, the bridge stood ready. A graceful curve of pine and hemp, narrow but sure, lit by the pale lanterns of dawn. The children cheered, their voices a secret chorus. Rafiq laid the last plank himself, driving the final nail as the eastern sky blushed with sunrise. Cross, he said. The boy who had first found him stepped forward, testing the sway. One by one the children followed, feet light as birds. On the western bank they turned and waved, eyes shining, for the first time in years. Rafiq smiled without pain. The morning after at first light, villagers gathered, drawn by the shouts of children racing across the new span. Gasps rose, followed by murmurs of astonishment. Who built this? Was it the council? A miracle? Rafiq remained in the shadows beneath a cedar, unseen. He watched farmers touch the ropes, mothers wipe their eyes, teachers call blessings. He heard someone say, whoever did this, may God reward them. That was enough. Oh, revelation. But secrets rarely stay hidden. A week later, Bashir climbed the hill with a basket of bread. You always liked cedar, the old man said, eyes twinkling. And you always were the only one who could make joints that neat. Rafiq opened his mouth, closed it again. Bashir laid a hand on his shoulder. The village owes you more than thanks. Come down tomorrow. Let them see you. I didn't do it for thanks, Rafiq said quietly. I know, Bashir replied. That's why they must know. Crossing back, the next day Rafiq walked into the village square. Conversations halted. Faces turned. Children ran to him first, the boy leader grinning. You built it, he shouted. A wave of applause followed, awkward at first, then wholehearted. Mothers pressed his hands, fathers clapped his back. The schoolteacher, tears bright, said, You have given them more than a bridge. You've given them a future. Rafiq felt heat rise in his chest, a warmth he had not known since Amna's laughter. Legacy the bridge endured. Through seasons of flood and drought, its pine boards darkened and its ropes weathered, but it held. The council eventually reinforced it with steel, but they kept the original beams as a memorial. Children continued to cross each morning, their voices ringing like bells over the water. And often, high on the hill, an old carpenter could be seen watching, a faint smile beneath his gray beard. He never claimed ownership. The river didn't care whose hands built the span, only that it stood. Yet every crossing was a quiet conversation between a man, his lost child, and the countless futures he had helped carry safely from one bank to the other.